And welcome into the Monday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar back in the saddle with us this week. Joe, good morning. How are you? What's going on?
You want the real answer? You want the generic answer?
I want whatever answer you want to give.
Well, we make fun of gout on this show a lot, but I also feel like our show is a vehicle for gout awareness.
It is.
And I'm having the worst gout attack possibly of my life, but definitely since the first time, which I think was 6 years ago. And I can tell you that it's because on Friday, my buddy, shout out Matt from Nolensville, who is a chef, got all this unbelievable chorizo and other stuff and made these ridiculous tacos. And a few of us went over there, tacos and beer. And the next day, there was a surprise party at a Mexican restaurant, no free ads. Shout out Brittany in Nolensville for her. And then there was more tacos and beer. And I woke up yesterday with my inflamed foot, which is where it always is, on the left side, right by my little toe. It's not the big toe like some people get. And then my dumbass said, you know what? The kids want to go to a movie. I think I can put a shoe on and be okay. So I limped around a movie theater yesterday watching Sinners. Don't bring your kids to Sinners, by the way. And unless they're like, adults. And then I woke up in the middle of the night and it was just a terrible, terrible mistake. So I apologize to you guys and to the listeners. And if you're watching, I'm kind of tilted this way because my foot is elevated and iced. I got like 3 hours of sleep and I'm in a lot of pain.
Well, look, I'm just worried about you. I got, when I got the news, really my concern went immediately to your well-being and your pain level. So I am proud of you for fighting through the gout today, showing up to work, doing the job, and being the professional that you are. That's where I stand on Joe Rexrode today.
Well, I appreciate it. We do work hard.
We do. Very hard. Ian Safar, welcome back from vacation. How was it? How we doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, thanks. It was a fun week at the beach, hanging out with the fam down in Florida. Did some relaxing, but we got some stuff done, man. I'm talking Children's Museum, Manatee Place, beach, pool, bounce house birthday party. Shout out to my sisters.
Productive.
Yeah. Played some golf.
Nice.
Which brings me to one. Now that we're getting to a little bit of the slow time, Robby, this is a question for you. We might have to address at some point here in the near future about golf.
Okay.
It's the first time I've played in quite a while. Played with my dad, my nephew, my brother-in-law. It's fun, good time, right? What we need to come up with, what is the cheating etiquette in golf? What is an acceptable form of cheating when it comes to playing golf?
Exactly.
Sounds like everybody cheats a little bit in golf. So I'd like to just maybe break that down a little bit and see where that goes.
I've played with some people who get in a bad lie, like in the woods or something, and they'll take their golf ball and throw it 75 yards forward. I'm like, that's not really what you're supposed to do there, son. You can't just sit there and throw it forward.
Hey, we're just playing. You're on the cart path. Do you want to nudge it a little bit onto the grass?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm fine. Are you right up against the tree? Do you want to move it a little bit and get so you can swing? We're not professionals.
Right.
Cool.
I'm not ready for anybody to break their wrist on a golf swing.
But are we just going to straight up lie on our stroke count?
Yeah, well.
How far are we going here? So, just as we go here, I'd just like to see maybe poll some of the audience about some golf cheating etiquette.
It's like those, Joe, scramble tournaments that you play in. The 615 Open, by the way, is an honest, upstanding competition that we do here on our station, our program. But I've been a part of some scrambles before where you get through 18 holes and the winning team comes in, who, by the way, has trouble walking the course out there, and all of a sudden somehow they shoot a 51. And it's really? You guys shot a 51, huh? In 18 holes. You got 2 holes in 1 on your card. Interesting. because I saw you guys hit the ball out there. And let me tell you, you did not approach a hole-in-one. There's a lot of that goes on.
Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, there's a lot to this. Yeah, like if you're just totally just launching it, just throwing it onto the green, there's that. There's this, but like in a scramble, especially if it's like, if there's a prize for, I mean, you're going to get a good score. Like typically you're gonna have, you get your best ball. So like you're already gonna have so the 4 people are gonna get together and cheat together.
Oh, it happens all the time.
That's
Yeah.
wild. That's wild to me.
Oh, it's wild to me too. But I mean, I've seen all sorts of videos on social media. Like there's this one where this group comes in, it's like, and the winning score of 49, and they just all get booed immediately. It's hilarious. It's like, we all know you're lying. Like you did not shoot a 49 out there, but thank you. Good stuff.
That's absurd.
Congratulations to JJ Spawn yesterday winning the US Open. Heck of a putt that he sunk on that last hole to win it. That's how you walk it off in golf there. But good stuff from JJ Spawn. That course was brutal. It was an absolute brute over the weekend. It did not go well for many of the world's best players, but cool story from JJ Spawn to get that done and to win the U.S. Open yesterday at Oakmont. Joe, Game 5 of the NBA Finals is tonight. I watched the entirety of Game 4 with my brother, who is a big-time Oklahoma City Thunder fan, and let me tell you, that was an emotional experience watching him go through that. It was pretty funny. But then they ended up pulling up. Not only did they win in the end, Joe, but they also won by 7. So shout out to the Thunder -6. Very late cover by the Thunder on Friday. And that thing is even back at 2 going to Oklahoma City. The Cup final, the Florida Panthers on the verge of winning their 2nd consecutive Stanley Cup. We'll get into that here in just a second. But, Joe, Game 5 of the NBA Finals tonight. Your thoughts on Oklahoma City evening the series up on Friday night, and what could be in store for us tonight in Game 5, where Oklahoma City, I believe, is a 9.5-point favorite.
Yeah, Indiana blew it. Oklahoma City, great job by them. In the last just couple minutes of that game, I was like, man, Indiana is actually going to be up 3-1 in this series. And I still might have picked OKC to win it. But Indiana blew it. And, I really, somebody I really appreciate, and this goes back to when he coached my team, more than 20 years ago, Rick Carlisle. First of all, I appreciate him coming out and telling it like it is on Doris Burke. But then everybody's going nuts. The Pacers fans on Scott Foster, the ref, fans are yelling Donahue at him.
I saw that.
And I'm not saying he's some great ref, but there were a couple plays late in that game that when they're slowed down, one of them was an SGA push-off, which of course he is the master of the half push-off. I mean, that's what he does. Oh, yeah. And then there was a turnover by Halliburton where he did get shoved. And so you look at him in slow-mo, and you're like, oh, my God, how'd you miss that? But, when you're watching the game, both plays, I didn't see anything. And so Carlisle came out and was basically just annihilated Pacers fans who were like, saying all this crap about Scott Foster. Like, this is stupid. Just shut up, basically. So I appreciate Rick Carlisle. I think that's the game that's going to cost them the series. I hope we have a great game tonight, but I'm fearful in OKC that, they might just turn on the Jets. But I keep saying that, and I keep underestimating the Pacers too, so maybe I shouldn't.
Well, it was another really good game on Friday, and
it was
really for the first 3 quarters, the guy who really kept Oklahoma City in it was Alex Caruso. Like he made a ton of big plays in the first 3 quarters, and then it was basically SGA time in the 4th quarter, and he came through. And like you said, he's the master at getting the free throw line, doing the sell job, doing the push off, but he also hit some unbelievable shots in that 4th quarter where it was just like, wow. I mean, look at that play that he made. So I thought Caruso basically kept them alive throughout the game, and then SGA came in and finished it in the 4th quarter. But, you got to like where the Thunder sit going back home in Game 5. And then, with the possibility of this thing extending out to 7 games, 2 of those 3 will be at home for Oklahoma City. So you got to feel pretty good about where they're at right now in terms of the series and where it's going. Joe, on the other side of things, what an opportunity blown by Edmonton on Saturday. You get the dramatic win in Game 4 in overtime to even that series up at 2, and you come back home with an opportunity to take control of the series on home ice. And it looked like, to me, Edmonton was basically skating in slow motion for the entire game. And yes, you credit Florida for that, but I thought it was a case where the travel and the schedule seemed to really affect Edmonton, and it did not affect Florida. And Brad Marchand was awesome in that game, and he is building a case. I know it's probably going to go to Sam Bennett if they end up winning it, but I mean, Marchand's making that interesting in terms of Conn Smythe in this series. He's been outstanding.
I think I understand what Ben, 15 goals now, but Marchand is the plays he's made in this series. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
Like they got Kachuk mic'd up, like, oh my God, over on the bench. Who is this guy? I understand he's been a great player for a long time, but this is absurd what he's doing. Like he's completely hijacked the series.
37 years old.
Absolutely. It's incredible. And what is he? He's is it what? He's one of two people to have 6 or more in a cup final. And the first time he did it, of course, was in that 11 series, going way the hell back. What they play Chicago that year, or that
played
Vancouver? Vancouver that year. It's insane. And yeah, I agree. They just look like a way better team. And I mean, basically through the balance of the series, that's true too. I think that maybe Edmonton made a mistake in goal. I understand Pickard. I mean, great job by him in relief, and they rallied and all that stuff. But I think that might also be something to look at. Keeping an open mind. I mean, they can go in there and and win this next game. But man, they keep falling behind. I mean, can they ever get a lead in the first period? What would that be like if they did?
Right. I mean, you're not going to, I know they've come back a couple of times on Florida this series, and that speaks to how dangerous they are offensively, but it's not a very good strategy to continue to fall behind to the Florida Panthers. I mean, they're just not a team that you come back on very often. As George points out on the YouTube chat, it was a rough start to Game 5 for Matthias Ekholm. He got beat inside by Brad Marchand on the first goal, and then a turnover at center ice that led kind of directly to the second goal. So not a great game from Ekholm to start things out. So now their backs are against the wall, and Florida with an opportunity tomorrow night to win their second consecutive Stanley Cup, and we'll see if Edmonton can respond. I mean, look, if you're Edmonton, you win one game and you got a Game 7 at home for a chance to win a Stanley Cup. Like if you would have presented that scenario to them before the season, they would have said, yeah, we'll take that. So really, I mean, it's one game for Edmonton, and then you get back in a winner-take-all situation in a Game 7. But I think Florida on the brink of a cup is going to be a very, very difficult team to beat in Game 6 at home. So we'll see if the Oilers are up to it at that point. We got a whole lot to get into on the program today. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us at 8 o'clock. We will get into all things Tennessee Titans with him, a development in the college football world that we'll get into a little bit later in the show. We'll revisit one of Joe Rexrode's best questions that he's ever asked on this program later in the show as well. Coming up next, we're going to get into the hot seat around here. Whose seat is hotter right now? Is it Brian Callahan or is it Andrew Brunette of the Predators? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
put a lot of effort into this offseason program. Maybe what did you feel like you learned from doing it for the first time? Is there anything that you're wanting to maybe tweak when you pick it back up?
We sort of tweaked all along. We found out some things, especially like points. How are you dividing up points for the offensive line, for example? Like, it's really hard for offensive linemen to get positive points. They don't have TFLs. They don't, kind of linemen just do their job, and that's their job. So how do you award points for that? And we tweaked some of how we awarded some points to the guys up front. We've tweaked a little bit of the process as it's gone. It's sort of a little bit of trial and error, not anything dramatic, but just little things that would come up. We maybe make an adjustment here or there, but I'm really happy with how the program went. And again, I think you can ask the players how they felt about it, but I think it kept our competitiveness high. I think it kept our focus on the things that matter. The intent of what we were trying to get done was sort of on our minds all the time. I hit it every day from in the team meetings, from practice, things that showed up that we needed to cover. So I think it's made us a better football team at the end of the day. And that's what the goal was. And again, we got another whole lot of work ahead of us, but for the program in and of itself, I thought it was, for the most part, successful.
As Brian Callahan, as minicamp wraps up and training camp around the corner for the Tennessee Titans, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. So, Joe, I'm throwing it out there today. As we know, not a lot of success for local professional sports teams over the last year or so. Brian Callahan, a 3-14 head coach at the moment. Andrew Brunette did a nice job in his first season, and the Predators made the playoffs, and you felt like things were trending positively. And just about a year ago, they had a big day in free agency and signed all these guys, and you thought, oh, man, Andrew Brunette and the Predators they're off, and they're getting ready to be a force in the Western Conference. And then they finished with the third worst record in the league. So my question is, Joe, whose seat is hotter right now? Is it Brian Callahan or is it Andrew Brunette of the Nashville Predators? Of which I believe, Joe, when the preseason odds come out, both in the NFL and in the NHL, in terms of coaching hot seats, you're going to find Brian Callahan and Andrew Brunette either at or near the top of both lists when those respective lists come out.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think my answer has to be, it's the funny thing about it is you're talking about historically vastly different ownership approaches to coaches, and so that would lead you to Callahan. But I'm going to say Brunette because I think that there's a real question about whether he finishes next season. And I'm not saying it's impossible that the same thing could be in store for Brian Callahan if things go really poorly. But this is also, the history is also of these leagues, and it's still a higher rate and just a higher just belief in the NHL that, okay, just change the coach and good things can possibly happen in that season. In the NFL, I don't even know. Do we have any cases in the NFL of like an interim coach? I'm sure there is something. I don't remember it, but like an interim coach coming in and doing anything. Usually the team sucks.
Yeah, usually it's just a coach placeholder.
It's just a tote. Yeah, exactly. It's just in there until they get in the NHL, we've actually seen these crazy runs and teams turn around and all that stuff. So I think it's Andrew Brunette. And of course the wild card is absolutely Amy Adams-Strunk. I mean, that's the thing. So it's totally fair to say, are you sure she's not just going to fire him first embarrassing loss? No, I'm not sure. But I think it's still possible that that there's now a little bit of time given to somebody. It could be him. He seems to be the first one who would be bounced, but I think he'll get all of next year. I can't say I feel confident now with Andrew Brunette.
Well, I think an interesting question also could be like kind of attached to this is like, as we know, the NFL season begins before the hockey season does. But I mean, the NFL season's wrapping up in late December, early January. Like it's a real question to me this year is like, by the time January rolls around, will Brian Callahan and Andrew Brunette both still be the head coaches here? Like, I think there's a chance that one or both may not be if seasons go the way that some think that they might. Now, Rob on the text line says anyone within 10 feet of Amy is always on the hot seat, which is basically kind of been the way that's operated over the last couple of years. Matthew from Jolton says, I feel like it should be Brunette. Before last season, the Preds were the 9th best in cup odds, not supposed to finish with the 3rd worst record. I would probably lean Brunette too, because I also think if the Predators start the first 15 games next year and they're like, I don't know, 6-9 or 5-10 or whatever it is, if they have a similar start that they've had the last couple of years, like, is Brunette going to make it through that? I think and this is where the Predators part of this comes in, Joe. I think in most organizations, the answer would be no. Like, I think in most organizations, he would be on a pretty short leash heading into next year. Barry Trotz, and really this organization as a whole, does things differently. And they've been unbelievably patient with coaches and obviously general managers over there. I mean, they've never fired a general manager, and this is their 4th coach that they've had. So they've been a very patient organization over the years. So the fan outcry is going to be really loud if the Predators don't start the season hot next year and if they're not off to a good start. Does the organization actually share that view? I think is going to be the question. And on the flip side, Joe, it's like it's totally different. I think perceptions of these organizations, like Predators fans yell about how the Predators are way too patient with the way that they operate. And then on the other side, you got Titans fans looking at Amy Adams-Strunk and saying, oh my goodness, is she just going to fire somebody every year at this point? It's kind of fascinating when you think about it, how different they've been in the way that they've operated.
Yeah, especially with the Titans recently. Not that Bud didn't do some firing in his day, but it's really gotten dramatic here lately. George on the YouTube chat points out, great, not great, but like certainly should be competitive, should be winning, should be playoff roster on one side, and a terrible roster on the Titan side, which should mean hotter seat for Brunette. So the Preds is also interesting in terms of, I look at it like it's Trotz's decision. And so I think Trotz has that, power to make that decision. And so then you lean toward patient. Obviously, right now we already seen it. I mean, this is already more patient than a lot of people would be. Now, does Governor Haslam's influence, change the way the Preds operate at some point? Does it start to look more like, basically your typical NHL franchise, which switches up quite often at both spots, but certainly at coach? I don't know that. And, I at this point, I'm just assuming this is Trotz's call. And that's where I think the question gets interesting, because he is extremely patient and he is extremely sympathetic to coaches. He's been there. And it's pretty obvious with some of the stuff he said publicly that he doesn't put this all on Brunette. He has looked at some of the things going on in the locker room and has sympathy for Brunette.
Yeah, that part of it's really interesting. I look at both situations right now, and if you force me to pick, like if you force me to answer the question of will Brian Callahan be the head coach for the Tennessee Titans after this season, my answer would be no. And I've talked about that before. Like, I don't trust the Titans to not make a coaching move at the end of the year, not make some sort of move going through what I think still has the chance to be a pretty rough year. Like, maybe they're not 3-14, but maybe they are 5-12, which would be a 2-game improvement, but it's still not a very pleasant season to sit through. And they've got a new front office. Does Borgonzi deep down want his guy? Like, there's a lot that goes into it that makes me believe that the odds are against Brian Callahan being the head coach after this season. I would probably answer the same way about Andrew Brunette. Like, the odds are that Andrew Brunette is probably not going to be the coach after this upcoming season in Nashville. Could be wrong. Like, sometimes you can dig yourself out, and maybe they make some new moves this offseason where they're competitive and they're back in the playoffs next year, and maybe he fixes some things. But, I mean, I'm just looking at the way things go in these leagues. Very rarely when the coach in the NHL starts to be on the hot seat, do they dig their way out. Usually they just get fired at some point. So Like the interesting thing is if you had to force me to answer, I would probably say both of them are gone after this next season with their respective teams. It's going to be interesting to see if it actually plays out that way. But that would be the way that I would guess it heading into both of these seasons for these teams.
Yeah, I think the shocking outcome would be both of these guys a year from now. Are we having this discussion again a year from now? I guess actually, if they're still both here, maybe we aren't having a hot seat discussion a year from now. Maybe they're both coach of the year in their respective leagues.
I mean,
this coming
honestly,
year.
I think that's probably a pretty good way to look at it, because if they're both here next year, that probably means that both teams did way better than we thought heading into the year, right? I mean, that would be the way that, I mean, I guess. I mean, or the
probably.
I mean, I guess it could be as simple as, well, the Titans were 5-12, but Cam Ward looked pretty good throughout, so we're keeping the coach at that point. Or, man, the Predators, they had 7 people go down for season-ending injuries the first game of the year, and that was it after that. I don't know. Like, the Brunette one's a little bit tougher to imagine one of those scenarios.
Exactly. Because, again, go back to the rosters. One's bad, one's should be good. It's hard for me to imagine Brunette here if the Preds don't have a good season. Yes, the Cam Ward thing is the variable for Callahan.
So whose seat is hotter, Andrew Brunette or Brian Callahan? We'll take more of your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Robby and Rexrode here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Monday morning. Throwing the question out there, whose seat is hotter as we enter into the NFL season and next year's NHL season between Brian Callahan and Andrew Brunette? We have it's about evenly split so far on the text line, Joe, which is interesting. One texter brings this up, says, Brunette's seat is hotter. I believe that Brinker and Borgonzi have sold Miss Amy on this patience idea because the roster needs a lot of help. Plus the fact that Callahan is breaking in a new quarterback. And everything that he says there makes sense. I still wonder, and this is, I think, a big question about this year. You know, first off, we'll see. Maybe Cam Ward comes in and is great, and he is just the tide that raises all boats, and the Titans end up, 8-9 or whatever it is, and you're feeling really excited about the way things are going. If it goes the way that most think when they look at this roster and they win 4 or 5 games or maybe 6 games, that theory is going to be interesting to see if it actually comes to fruition. Because there's no doubt, and we've talked a lot about this, Joe, from the moment basically that Rand Carthon was fired, Chad Brinker, even before he hired Mike Borgonzi, started talking about, building through the draft and drafting, developing, retaining those guys, and kind of the patient approach that they need to take as they build this roster out. And all that sounds great. And maybe they have sold Amy Adams Strunk on, hey, this is going to take a while. This is going to be kind of a slow build here to build this roster back up to where it needs to go. I still, Joe, I think it's easier to sell her on that when you're not actually going through it, right? Like that's going to be, to me, the ultimate test of, all right, if they go 5-12 this year and Amy Adams Strunk has to sit through it again, and she's looking around Nissan Stadium and it's either half empty or it's filled with other teams' fans, how's she going to react to it? What's her thought process going to be on that as the year goes on? And again, on the Brian Callahan front, does it become obvious at any point this year throughout the process of all that he's just in over his head? I mean, that's a part that I can't answer right now as we sit here on June the 16th.
Yeah, it is possible. It's hard for me to buy that when I look at his path and also when I hear him talk, but the product is what it is. And again, then you just get into how you divvy it up and how much you put on this, how much you put on this. You obviously didn't do a good enough job last year. There are other coaches who could have taken that roster, bad as it was, and done more. Maybe not won 5 more games, but looked better, right? I mean, and again, there's a lot with him too. I mean, we talked about it going into last season. I don't think we made enough about the fact that you are going rookie head coach, rookie OC, rookie DC, rookie special teams coach. That's just a huge mistake, in retrospect. But we talked about it. But again, I definitely think that's part of the issue. But ultimately, it comes down to, I mean, he's accountable as a head coach. I think it is interesting how split this is. Like Jared from Spring Hill brings up the point that also when you think about, you can talk about the patience stuff, but also what about this idea that Brinker may want his own coach, may have someone else in mind, Again, I've always believed, like, if that's the case, why are you wasting a year with this guy with your number 1 overall pick quarterback then? Why waste the year? Like, there's no law that you couldn't have moved on from Brian Callahan after last year. And if you didn't, to me, if you're competent, then you want to give him the real opportunity. If you're incompetent, then you're just to me, then you're going to just take this year and you can't wait to move on to your guy. I find that to be incredibly stupid if that's the case. I have a hard time buying that, but maybe
I've got a hard time buying it too. I guess the only thing I would say to that is, did Amy Adams Strunk basically say, all right, we're moving on for Carthon. You guys are not firing Brian Callahan yet. And does that change heading into next year? Like, I hear you on, like, if you're not making the move after this year, then you've got to give him a fair shake. And I agree with that. then the question becomes like, what exactly are the guidelines of the fair shake? Like, is there a win total? Is it a combination of a win total and the way that the quarterback looks? Like, what exactly is the criteria going to be in determining what Brian Callahan is as a head coach? And does the fact that neither, like, this is a new front office kind of structure they've got, does the criteria, even if they won't say this publicly, like, is it more of a strenuous criteria for him to meet maybe than it otherwise would be because they've got somebody else in mind at that point? Those are things that I have no idea about.
Yeah, I mean, it's they're all interesting things to keep in mind. Texter says, didn't Jared say Amy overruled Brinker and wanted to keep BC? Jared reported that? I don't remember that. Do you remember that?
He said,
speculated that.
And Ian, you can help me here, but I believe Jared said that he had heard that at one point Brinker did want to move on from Callahan.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. So,
but that's such a, and I said it at the time, and I said it to him. Okay, what are you saying? Wanted to, didn't like him, told someone he'd like to, or actually pushed to do it, right? I mean, that there was a huge difference in those two things. So yeah, but no, to the texter, I don't think that the Amy overruled him, said no. I haven't heard him say that, and so I think that's taking it too far from whatever he heard about what Brinker wanted to do. You know, some people, like I mentioned Jared from Spring Hill. I mean, some people are just out on Callahan altogether. He says, "What's his offensive scheme?" Dink and dunk. I mean, look, the offensive scheme is a scheme that has won championships in the NFL. I mean, like, it's the most popular offense in the NFL. You know, it stems back to the Shanahan stuff. I mean, it's the new West Coast offense. So the scheme is fine, but it's what you're doing with it. It's your play-by-play selection. It's how you're molding it to your players. It's all that stuff. And it is, who are your players? And that's where it gets, again, tough with Callahan, because if you can't block anybody, which they couldn't last year, I don't give a crap what your scheme is.
Yeah.
It's going to look poor. And then if your quarterback on top of that is missing easy throws and is committing horrific turnovers, like, what coach is looking good there? You can then say, well, why didn't the coach get better out of Levis? And again, that's fair to ask, right? I mean, that's why Ward's performance this year to me is more important than wins and losses, or at least it should be. As long as the wins and losses are loss after loss after loss with embarrassing circumstances beyond the quarterback.
Well, and the other difference in having this discussion right now is, like, the Titans offseason for the most part is done. Like, you know, I don't know, maybe they make a trade or they make some addition between now and the time the training camp starts, but the bulk of their offseason work is done. And the Predators' offseason is just about to start here in a couple of weeks, basically, right? I mean, you've got, the Cup final going on right now, and then from the time the Cup final's done until the NHL draft, you're going to see a lot of trade speculation. Do the Predators get involved with that? Free agency starts on July 1st. There seems to be the thought out there this year that there could be more offer sheets than normal, so we'll see if they get involved in all that. But the point of that is, like, we don't know exactly what the Predators roster is going to look like yet. Now, if they come back with largely the same group, and Stamkos is back and Marchessault's back and all those guys, then I do think it's going to be like maybe powder keg is too strong of a word, Joe, but it's going to be interesting, because if they, like, specifically if Marchessault's back and they've got, like, the same group around Brunette with maybe an addition or two here or there, if they struggle in the first 5-10 games next year, I mean, it's immediately going to get into, well, players don't like the coach, or Marchessault doesn't like the coach. It's going to happen quick next year if they've got basically the same group. So it's more important than ever for Brunette that they start well, because if they don't, it's just going to get so loud so quickly with the fan base next year if they don't start well.
It will, but does that matter? I mean, at some point,
I mean, it's got to at some point.
Assume. You would think so, right? Yeah. But if there's anybody who I could actually believe just, puts on the blinders and says, I'm making my own evaluation and you guys can have all the conversation you want. Again, as a guy who has been in those situations, I mean, remember, they wanted him out in Washington, and then he wins the title the next year.
Yeah.
You know, and certainly had moments here before he actually finally did get fired where he could have been. So, but yeah, I mean, I would have to think that it might get so loud. And again, if you're him and that's how it starts, how do you not evaluate it like, okay,
right,
this just isn't working? And then we can now second guess and say, okay, well, why didn't you do this before and go hand select a coach when you had a better pool of possible replacements than you do now?
Yeah, it's good. That part of it, I mean, it's going to be interest right from the jump next year in that team in terms of how quickly they start out of the gate. 615-737-1025, our phone number. There's a stat that I've got with the Titans that, number one, I don't think a lot of Titans fans will believe when I throw it out there. And number two, my God, I hope it gets better this year. We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. We are taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Joe, there's a stat that if I told most Titans fans this, I don't know that they'd believe it. But it was actually an improvement last year on the offensive side of the ball in what ultimately the only thing that matters is, and that is points per game, right? So last year, the Tennessee Titans scored a whopping 18.3 points per game, Joe, which ranked 27th in the National Football League. And believe it or not, that was actually up from 17.9 points per game the year before in Vrabel's last year as head coach of the Tennessee Titans. So first off, congratulations to Brian Callahan and the Titans for the improvement in that category. Not a whole lot of improving going on.
No one ever talks
year.
about that.
No one ever talks about it. But congratulations to Brian Callahan for the improvement in that category. And secondly, I just want to offer my condolences on behalf of the Robby and Rexrode program to the entire city of Nashville, the entire state of Tennessee, for having to watch this over the last couple of years on the offensive side of the ball. 18.3 points per game. I mean, the fact, frankly, that there are 5 teams that were worse than the Titans last year in that category is kind of amazing when you think of it. I mean, the Browns were at 15.2 points per game last year. That's hard to do in today's NFL. I mean, that's really, really bad. So obviously that's got to get better. I mean, it has been an absolute tire fire on the offensive side of the football to watch for this team over the past few years. So, Joe, I guess my question is, we've been talking a lot about Brian Callahan being on the hot seat, and the offense is his baby. I mean, he's going to be the play caller. He's the offensive guy. That's why he was hired. He's the quarterback guy, and you got a rookie quarterback heading into this. Are the Titans equipped, in your mind, to substantially improve on that number this year? Can they go from 18.3? And look, I'm not even going to get crazy and start to ask for like the high 20s here or anything like that. Can they go from 18.3 to like 21? Are they equipped for a 3 or 4 point uptick in their average points per game with what they've got on the offensive side of the football in your mind? Or, Joe, is this going to be another year where we get to the end of it and we're talking about the Titans being in the teens in terms of points scored per game?
Well, I think if they are in the teens, then I think that the hot seat conversation it's going to be pretty loud because one, I don't think you're having a very special or even pretty good rookie QB year if you have that. Obviously 2 years ago you had Tannehill and he got hurt and he was diminishing, and then you had some couple games where like Levis was exciting, but it was very bad. And it's also offensive line related, of course, right? I mean, can they just be okay up front? Can they be decent? Can they be solid? If they can, then Cam Ward can at least have a somewhat promising rookie year. It's hard for me to imagine they won't get over 20. I mean, again, getting over 20, like you said, it's not some great
Shouldn't
achievement.
be that hard.
I mean, the Titans in 2020 were at 31 points a game.
Yeah.
So, long ago. Wasn't that long ago, just 5 years ago, but they were, again, the end of 19 into all of 20, they were right up there with the top handful of offenses in the NFL. Hard to believe, but they were. And again, everything went into that, including a great receiver, a great running back, a offensive line that before Lawan got hurt, I think was great too, and then Tannehill playing the level he did, everything's diminished. Yeah, I mean, that's a very low bar necessity for this team is to be into the 20s.
Yeah, like if they're not, then what I talked about earlier in the show is probably going to come to fruition, and Brian Callahan's probably not going to be the coach heading into the following season. I mean, I look at their roster right now, and I look at their receiving core specifically, and I say, I don't know if they are equipped to really make much of an improvement there, right? I mean, you've got Ridley, you've got a guy in Tyler Lockett that'll be 33 in September, and the production pretty clearly is going down. And then it's a whole lot of question marks after that. Like, I have no idea what Io Manor is going to bring to the table in year one as a rookie, or DK. Like, there's a lot of question marks at receiver, and I look at that position specifically, and I think to myself, I don't know. Like, they've got a chance to still be pretty bad at wide receiver this year, unless a whole lot of things work out in the positive for them. I also look at it and I say, well, their offensive line is going to be tough to be as bad as it's been over the last couple of years. You feel like at least there's a chance that maybe they fix some of that heading into this year. You do have, I think, a good back in Tony Pollard. Not a great back, but a good back in Tony Pollard. And it's not going to be, I think, too much of a stretch to get better quarterback play than they got last year. At least it shouldn't be. I mean, is Cam Ward going to light the world on fire? Probably not. But can he give you better quarterback play than you got a year ago? I would say that that's a good possibility and a likelihood. So if you get those things, even with a receiving core that I still think has a ton of questions heading into the year, I think you can naturally start to improve on some of those numbers. I still look at the receiving core and look, frankly, I am very much in believe it when I see it mode with Brian Callahan. And maybe that's unfair after 1 year and the roster being as bad as it was. But, everything just went so poorly last year that I think he's got a ton to prove, at least to me, heading into this year. So I could envision another scenario where we get to the end of the season and we're talking about the Titans being one of the lowest scoring teams in the NFL yet again.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like Jared from Spring Hill he says, no, they can't go from 18-3 to 21. It would require so much improvement. We don't have the players. Jared, they can't get almost a field goal more a game. The thing is, guys, they can get to 21, 22, 23 and still be terrible. Yeah. I mean, like we're just saying, they absolutely easily can get to that. And that's not going to necessarily give them a lot more wins. But
the Colts were at 22.2 last year.
Yeah, I mean, they can get into the 20s and go 4-13. Again, what's the defense giving up? I mean, last year the defense had good total defense numbers, but as we've talked about, those were kind of falsified. Yeah, I do want to thank Big Joe for texting in this morning and calling himself Phil Stiffy. Is that right? Phil Stiffy, who says, "Isn't every coach in the hot seat?" No. And then name the SEC football coach as long as tenure. My guess is it's either Kirby Smart or Mark Stoops. Thank you, Big Joe. I know your number. It's never going to work again. Thanks, bro.
Thank you, Big Joe. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our buddy Mark in Nashville. Mark, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, good morning, fellas. What's up, Joe?
What's up, Mark?
Yeah, how you doing? Hey, Joe, is Big Joe pranking you, Joe?
It's a daily occurrence. Well, he always gets Rexrode, and it's very funny.
Well,
but when's the last time he got me?
Not that long
ago.
Yeah,
we're going to have a long talk with Big Joe about that, man. We can't be pranking you, Joe. Can't do that, man.
That's right.
But hey, y'all talking about the offensive woes of the Titans and stuff. Joe, I thought last year with the bad season that Callahan had with Levis and stuff, I thought maybe he would go out here and get him a true offensive coordinator, a guy that kind of runs a similar offense like he does, because he's got to be focused on everything this year, being on the hot seat, special teams, offensive line play. He's got to have his hat in on everything and just can't focus on just the offense and stuff. I think, like Robby was saying earlier, Lockett, you're not going to get much from him. What you going to get from Bryce Oliver? We already know Traylon Burks, he probably won't even be there. It's the lack of playmakers that they have on that squad. I don't see them scoring. Matter of fact, I see them scoring less than they did last year. They'll probably be ranked 26th, 27th in offense this year. And I don't see Callahan. I want to see Callahan make it. But, Joe, I don't think he's going to make it past midseason the way this team is. They're too far off with playmakers, players, offensively, defensively. I just don't see that happening with them, man. I don't see Callahan making. I mean, is Chig gonna give you some more production? Pollard and those guys, but I just don't see the offense scoring much more than what they did last year. But hey, y'all have a good day, man. I got to get out here to Atlanta, and y'all be easy, man. Have a good day, Joe.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you, bro. Yeah, I mean the offensive coordinator part of it is interesting because, Joe, the day the season ended last year, we started talking about potential moves that they can make. And one of the things that both of us looked at was, what about Nick Holtz? Like, what is Nick Holtz bringing to the table? And could that be maybe an option that you look at this offseason if you're the Titans and trying to upgrade at that spot? And not necessarily like taking play calling away from Brian Callahan, but could you find something better at that spot? Obviously, they didn't do that, and Nick Holtz is still there. So, that dynamic even. Like, I think, Callahan talked at his end of season press conference last year about how he needs to do a better job of kind of getting to the whole team rather than just being with the offense. I think part of that is like you need to have a high level of trust in your offensive staff, led by your offensive coordinator, to do some of those things. And will they have that this year is going to be, I think, really interesting.
Yeah, and I think, but I do think Mark's also talking about like a play calling OC, and I don't think that was ever going to happen. That's just look, the formula has worked for a lot of teams. It doesn't work for everybody, but the formula of the play calling head coach, it's in vogue, and it's been more successful than not in this league. And that's how he. I mean that's what he came from, and that's what he's going to be. So I definitely hear all that. You have to still be the CEO, and a lot of things have to get better. And again, that's why staff hires are huge. But yeah, I still think OC, it's obviously an important job. If it wasn't, Brian Callahan wouldn't have gotten this job. These other guys who didn't call plays wouldn't get head coaching jobs. And I still think that's absolutely, if it goes badly, I think we'll look back, and one of the missteps was probably not hiring someone with a little bit more of a resume than Nick Holtz.
615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Rexrode threw out a very fascinating question about a year ago that we got into.
I'm good for 1 year.
And boy, has the equation changed since then. We will revisit his brilliant question coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Monday morning. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us at 8 o'clock. We will get into all things Tennessee Titans with him, so looking forward to that. Got the Rob rant coming up later this hour at 7:45. So, Joe, I want to set the scene for you because it was just about a year ago when Trevor Lawrence agreed to terms on a new 5-year, $275 million contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we talked a lot about that deal. And one of the questions, one of the conversations that came out of that deal was from you, basically looking at the AFC South and throwing the question out there, how would we kind of look and stack these AFC South teams based on the future direction of their team and the outlook of where things were going at that time? Now, I mean, think back to, I know it's hard to do, but think back to a year ago, Joe. You had Will Levis entering into year 2. There was some excitement about Will Levis potentially being the answer at franchise quarterback. You had in Indianapolis what people hoped would be a healthy Anthony Richardson stepping into year 2 and maybe leading the Colts to the promised land at that point. Houston, it was just coming off a unbelievable rookie season from C.J. Stroud and that Texans team, and Bobby Slowick was the next hottest thing in coaching and all those things. So think about now, a year later, Joe, Bobby Slowick gets fired in Houston. They have a new offensive coordinator. They basically gutted their entire offensive line and have revamped that. You have Trevor Lawrence, who was hurt for a significant portion of last year, and when he was healthy, did not play overly well. You have Anthony Richardson in a quarterback competition with Daniel Jones heading into his 3rd year in Indianapolis. And Will Levis is still on the Titans roster, but is now out, and they've drafted another quarterback. So, Joe, as we revisit this question a year later, what do you make of the AFC South, the future outlooks for these teams, and how you would kind of stack them as we sit here today on June the 16th?
Yeah, it is amazing to think back. Obviously, very different feeling in Indy for Anthony Richardson. It's like, well, maybe they played him too early, but he's still got all the goods to be great. It's got to be hard for some Titans fans to believe how much excitement there was about Will Levis a year ago, but it was there. It was there. And, look, Stroud, we were wondering, is there going to be a sophomore slump? There was a little bit, but still, I mean, I'm starting with them. Now, the interesting thing about the Texans is they had the star quarterback and the bright future, and then like front office stuff totally screwed it up, and then Deshaun Watson wanted out of there. Like, there's things like that can always happen to derail something. And I don't know if there's a true championship contender emerging anytime soon in Houston. The bottom line is CJ Stroud is easily, to me, the most exciting quarterback and the most sure thing and the most likely to be great for a sustained period of time. And if you, that's to me, that's what matters. And they also have other things. They got some really good young players on both sides of the ball. I still think their head coach, D'Amico Ryan, I think he's really good. So I think they're an easy number one.
I would agree.
It'd be hard for me to entertain any of the other 3 at the top spot. For me, I'm going next. I'm going to go to, I think Jacksonville and the Titans both have a case, just because Jacksonville has someone who is going to be good at quarterback. And maybe Cam Ward's going to be better. Maybe Cam Ward's going to flame out and be a disastrous pick. That's also possible. I know right now this is not the time of year for anybody to buy that as a possibility, but it is a possibility. Trevor Lawrence is going to be good. He's going to be good to pretty good to good. I don't know that he's going to be much better than that. And it's still the Jags, and their GM is 11 years old, and and they might be totally screwing up Travis Hunter. So I'm not super excited about them, but I'm going with quarterback. I'm going to go them. Then I'm going to go Titans. only because at least there's hope. Like maybe Cam Ward does work out. Like right now, you at least have the possibility that Cam Ward is going to live up to, or again, live 70% of the way up to being the number 1 overall pick, 65% of the way. You're still like, that's playoff appearances. That's pretty good. You know, that's Trevor Lawrence territory. And then I have to go Colts last because like Daniel Jones looks like he's going to win this QB job, and kudos to you. Like, where are you going to go from there? Right now, there's just no reason. They have some decent players, but like they have to be last. And look, rest in peace, Jim Irsay. We had some fun with Jim Irsay on this show over the years, but the guy is an owner that a lot of those players loved him.
Yep.
And wasn't perfect, but like he did some pretty good things, and now his daughters are splitting the duties, and who the heck knows how that'll go.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Colts, the Titans, and the Jags is like there are huge question marks with all three of those teams, and for different reasons in most cases. But I mean, ownership is kind of a common theme in that, right? I mean, now that Jim Irsay has passed away, what is the ownership structure and the decision making and all that? What's that going to look like in Indianapolis? I don't know. I have no clue how that's going to work. Jacksonville, I mean, we could talk about Liam Cohen and the Duval stuff and the new general manager and the weird Travis Hunt, like all that's weird. But I still look at Jacksonville and I think to myself, ownership has been their biggest problem. And their ownership has been bad in Jacksonville, and they've made a lot of bad decisions. And that's why the Jacksonville Jaguars, save for a year or two here or there, are usually at the bottom of the league. I mean, that is an ownership thing. And it's hard to escape that conversation with them. I mean, right now, it could change. Right now, the Titans have bad ownership, and we'll see how it goes. But, I mean, she has made some just baffling decisions over the past few years, which have played a part in why the Titans have been where they've been. So, I think Houston unquestionably is number one. I think a lot of that has to do with C.J. Stroud. I'm also with you on Houston that I don't know that I would consider Houston a legitimate championship threat right now in the AFC either. And they have revamped their entire offensive line, and we'll see how that goes this year. I think you could rank the Titans, the Jags, and the Colts almost in any order, 2 through 4. I really think you could. And I think, number one, that speaks to how bad they've been over the past few years and what the outlook kind of looks like for them now. If I had to do it, I would probably go this way. I would go Houston at 1. I would probably go Indy at 2, just based on the rest of their roster. And, part of the hope for Indy is, well, maybe they are bad this year with Daniel Jones, and then they draft their next quarterback. I would go Titans 3, Jacksonville 4. But I think 2 through 4, I mean, it's a razor's edge, and you could readjust them any way you wanted to, which shows you why this division is as bad as it's been. And the question that we threw out a few weeks ago is, like, is Houston actually that good, or are they just the best of what is a bad division?
What do you want, Indy Ben's payroll here? I hope he's listening and sends you some appreciation. I hear what you're saying, but I think Indy's clearly 4 just because of the QB. Maybe I'm putting too much into QB. And again, I like the Titans just have, it's their latest try, right?
I think so you overrate Lawrence a little bit. I don't even know if I would go good with Lawrence. Like, he's been, I would say, average at best would be the way that I would put it.
Yeah, that's true. But like, at this point, would you take Trevor Lawrence or Daniel Jones?
I mean, I would take Lawrence over Daniel Jones for sure. But like, I guess my point is they're stuck with Lawrence. And I don't think that Indy is stuck with either Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones.
That's true. But and definitely you make the good point on ownership. But that's the thing. What the heck? I don't know. I'm seeing stuff like they're all going to be on the sideline listening on the headsets and stuff.
I did see that.
I don't. I mean, I have no idea what that's going to look like, with their ownership. And you just don't know. I mean, even like in Pittsburgh, the people are like, yeah, this Rooney's not like the previous Rooney. It's, again, is that true, or is that just like because the cycles of the league are hard to totally overcome? I don't know, but I do know that it's possible they could be derailed there. with them right now, when I look at the future, I want something to hold on to.
Yeah.
And yes, you're right. It's not like, yay, get excited about Trevor Lawrence. I guess maybe I'd put the Titans second because of that, because they are locked into that. And again, the Titans, after this year, the Titans may be the clear 4 in this discussion.
Yeah.
Because Ward's terrible and they fire Callahan and they just start over. By the way, Chad Brinker's still in there. He's somehow, convinced them that he should keep his job. They could look easily 4th, but Ward just is hope. Ward is hope. And so I'm going to, until he proves that he's not a cause for hope, that's what he is.
So how would you rank the AFC South teams and the outlook direction that they're headed right now? 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll continue this discussion coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal is Body Rock. Plank, lunge, twist, and push your limits with Body Rock's dynamic, muscle sculpting Pilates-inspired classes designed to rock your body to the core. Get half off a $50 gift card now at theGameNashville.com/deals to use at any of Body Rock's 4 Nashville locations while supplies last. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Throwing it out there as you're looking at the AFC South teams and their future outlook, their direction that they're headed right now. How'd you rank them? I think we've all got Houston at 1. I haven't seen one person yet that doesn't have Houston at number 1. So if you have somebody other than Houston at 1, we'd love to hear from you at 615-737-1025. Adam in Portland on the text line or on the phone line, waiting patiently. Let's head there and get his thoughts. Adam, welcome into the program.
Yeah, Houston's number 1, dude. But so I would say, like almost in every scenario, I'm going to put the Titans above the Jaguars. So until you prove me wrong on that, but the same feeling, and I hate to say it because it rips my heart out. I'm almost always going to put the Colts above the Titans until we are clear favorites over them. So it's probably looking like that, man. Houston, Indy, us, and then the Jags. But I've been listening to you guys this morning. I feel like Cam. It doesn't really matter what he does. Like I was texting Joe, like I feel like Cam has to be spectacular, but even if he does, I don't think it's going to be enough, dude. Like I just feel like the whole thing's going to come apart. And I worry because we looked at the same thing when Trevor Lawrence was put in that situation with Urban Meyer when he was doing his stuff at his bar or whatever and acting crazy, man. We were like, that's going to permanently damage Trevor Lawrence. And so I worry that Cam going through such a loser season is going to break him, dude. Like this confidence and swag or whatever that everybody, is talking about from this past week, it's going to be hurt, if he ends up going through a 3-win season and he feels like he can't help him. So I don't know, dude. I'll put us 3rd right now, and I really worry about what it's going to do to Cam.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate the call. Pervin Urban. That was a throwback to the past there.
So, no, I just want to make sure maybe I heard wrong. Is he suggesting that Urban's groping somehow hurt Trevor Lawrence permanently? I mean, that year was a terrible way to start.
It was just a circus around all of it.
Yeah, but that's that's such, to me, that's total excuse making for Trevor Lawrence, isn't it? I mean, Look, it was a bad start. He overcame it. He's had Doug Peterson, who has a good track record with quarterbacks. I just think that Trevor Lawrence at this point is he just isn't the absolute elite superstar quarterback that everybody thought he was going to be coming out of Clemson. And he has the tools. He had an incredible run at Clemson when they were at the very top of the sport. Like he was playing on the best teams in college football. It was Bama and Clemson were the best 2 programs. And he was great, but it happens all the time. Guys just aren't as good. I mean, his outcome is still, it's in the, what was the stat? 2080? What was our stat in the Super Bowl era of working out? First round quarterbacks working out. It's
like 25%. And then our definition of working out 25. Was it's very loose of working out.
And he would qualify.
Yeah.
He would qualify. Yeah. So he qualifies, but that's just, I just think he's just not that great. He's pretty good. He's pretty good. And again, that pretty good is better than Mariota's pretty good, as we've talked about. But yes, I'm actually earlier had a hot take on the text line about how it doesn't matter, unless there's a playoff appearance, Callahan's out because Malarkey won a playoff game and got canned. Callahan is toast. My real quick on that. I think a huge question or a huge part of that is, does Borgonzi have someone? Because remember, John Robinson wanted Mike Vrabel as coach.
Yeah,
he wanted Mike Vrabel. He thought he had the next star coach. Pretty good eye for talent, frankly, on J-Rob's part. But he had someone in mind, so that's why they were just ready to move on from Malarkey. And also, there's a lot of stuff with Robisky and the offense, all that stuff regressing in 17. But does Borgonzi have someone like that, or does he not? Is he one of these Chiefs guys? Is one of those he desperately wants to be a head coach, or not? I think that's a big part of that outcome.
Also, I would say this, the Titans, I don't expect to be very good this year. I don't think that one season of that early in your career, I don't think, I mean, unless there's just some catastrophic injury, which knocking on wood, hopefully there's not. I don't think that if you've got the goods as a quarterback and you're made of the right stuff, which it looks like Cam Ward is, we'll see. But you're made of the right stuff and you've got that confidence, all that. I don't think one bad season removes that from you, right? Like I don't think it totally destroys that. Now, if you go season after season and you just have a terrible team around you and you're just losing, does that affect you at some point? Yes, I'm sure it probably does. But I mean, look, I know Joe Burrow got hurt his first year, but I mean, go back and watch Joe Burrow and that team during his first year. I mean, it was a nice, he was good and he was running for his life from the moment he walked through the door there. And they were not a very good team his first year. And then ultimately, obviously, he gets hurt. Now, I think, he beat the Titans that year. So that was an interesting.
Yes, he did.
That was an interesting game when the Titans should not have been beaten by Cincinnati. But you've seen some of these guys, like Josh Allen early in his career. You've seen some of the elite quarterbacks in the league. They're not all like Mahomes where they just step in and you're immediately going, 13-4 or whatever it is. There have been some lean seasons, particularly with the higher draft picks who have had some bad teams that they've had to kind of come up with. Now, there's also been the other way, right? Like everybody thought the Texans were going to be bad and they weren't. CJ Stroud immediately took them to the playoffs. Same thing with Jaden Daniels last year. I'm just saying, like, I don't know that I buy that one bad season with the Titans is just going to totally rob Cam Ward of his confidence. And if it does, I don't know that if that happens, you're always made of the right stuff, if that's the way it goes down.
Did you say Cam Ward has confidence?
Yeah.
I don't believe Cam Ward's allowed to have any confidence. Have you heard this take?
I have heard that, yes.
I mean, that's a beauty of a take, which I don't totally understand. But in all seriousness, no, it's a good point because there's plenty of rookie quarterbacks who show promise and don't win.
Yeah.
And Joe Burrow didn't win. Joe Burrow, you could see it with him. He wasn't insanely good, but you could still see, like, I did not think after that year that they had made a mistake. Matthew Stafford in Detroit, again, I don't remember what they won in like 2009, but there's no way they won more than probably 4 or 5 games. I'm guessing. I'll look it up. Everybody, you could see it though. Like, wow, they actually finally got a quarterback who might be so good that he's going to overcome what this organization is. And yeah, you can find other examples of that. So Cam Ward can go 5-12 this year, and we can all still feel like, yep, they got somebody. That's absolutely possible.
Stafford, by the way, started 10 games his rookie year, and they went 2-8 in those 10 games. So, man, just goes
there
straight.
You go.
I mean,
there you go.
There have been plenty of quarterbacks in the league that have taken their lumps early and then have rebounded. Now, look, I'm also not going to be naive and think that there haven't been cases in league history where the situation that quarterbacks have gone to and just either the absolute terrible roster that's been around them, the decision-making by the organization, some of the clown show situations off the field. Like there have been situations where obviously the environment has probably affected pretty drastically whether or not that quarterback turned out to be good, right? Like there are probably, I mean, you can go through the history of the NFL and look at quarterbacks that had all the profile, had all the tools, had the confidence you were looking for heading into the NFL, and the situation that they were in was just so bad that it just zapped them. I mean, you can find those guys. So I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I just don't know that I'm worried about that in a 1-year setting with Cam Ward.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ways quarterback get ruined, there's plenty of would-be great quarterback careers that go nowhere, and would-be non-quarterback careers, Tom Brady, that end up in getting this opportunity, and then we get to see what he is, or else no one would have. And again, I just mentioned the Detroit Lions. They got a great history of guys that I wish I could have seen them somewhere else and what they would have become. So, but I think the biggest way quarterbacks get ruined, so to speak, is when they come in and there's no protection and they take so many hits that they start seeing ghosts. I think that's the easiest, the most obvious way a quarterback gets ruined. Obviously, like think of David Carr. Could he have been great if he didn't have to deal with 76 sacks as a rookie? I don't know, maybe. But it's hard to sit there and look at that and say that didn't affect the rest of his career.
615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Looks like a big change is coming in college football, and we'll see if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Some differing opinions on that we'll get into coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. We'll have the Rob Rant coming up at 7:45. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on all things Tennessee Titans. So looking forward to that. Taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025. Joe, some changes look like they're coming in college football as it relates to the transfer portal. Chris Vanini, friend of the show, put this story out over the weekend of obviously the conversation that Kirby Smart had a couple of weeks ago about how the transfer portal and the window and trying to figure out what to do with the portal windows is the most immediate problem that they've got in college football right now. And it looks like there is some momentum to having one transfer portal window. And as Vanini talks about in this piece at The Athletic, Joe, looks like there's a lot of momentum for that window to be held in January. So that would get rid of the spring portal. You would have the single portal window, with the hope being at that point that you get it done in January. Coaches know what their roster is going to look like as they head into the spring, and then obviously the next season into the fall, and you can kind of go from there. Now, it's not, totally simple. Obviously, a window in January, Joe, there's still college football playoff going on during that time. You've got a lot of things happening that complicate it at the start of kind of the academic calendar at that part of it. So it's not totally clear that that's the way it's going yet, but it does look like it. I think Vanini even called it, based on some of the feedback that he's gotten, probably 80-20 of the responses in favor of the single portal window in January. So what do you make of that, Joe? What do you make of the single portal window in January? Does that fix some of the transfer portal problems in your mind? And where do you think this all goes from here in the aftermath of, again, the fallout from the House settlement?
Yeah, I think it's very simple. I think the January window is the way to go. You January 2nd to whatever. And like in the story, you got Ryan Day crying about it, because his team, look, the teams that go deep that are still playing on January 20th or whatever, it's going to be complicated for them. Like there's a quote from Kirby Smart where people said, I've been told, because he's talking about that too, and how difficult it is when you're in a championship situation to deal with that. And the quote he gave was like, I was been told to not cry about that from the yacht. And that's how I feel. Like, look, it's almost like maybe some measure of like the NFL. If you're the best team, you draft last, like good for you. And so you have to deal with the headache. You have one of the best teams. You're still playing in late January, and this is a headache that you have to deal with. I know it's not perfect, but one window absolutely to me has to happen, and the spring window is problematic. And this isn't like player advocates are against this too, but look, I'm totally against restricting earnings for players. They're trying with NIL Go. Plug in your NIL deal. We'll see if it works out. You plug in, oh, yay, approved, or denied. It's just so dumb. It's this Deloitte thing is so dumb. I'm 100% against that, restricting earnings. It's not going to work. You're going to get your pantsuit off you. But I am for restricting like the movement in terms of, again, think of it like pro sports. There should be one period of free agency. There should be one period of movement. If you have extenuating circumstances, your coach leaves, then we already have it in place where you're going to get, I think, whatever it is, 5 days or whatever. You have a window then after, if something like that happens. That's how it should be. It used to be players were stuck. Their coach would leave and they couldn't do anything about it, Or if you wanted to transfer, you have to sit out a year no matter what. So one window of movement, it just makes more sense, especially with the academic calendar. Again, I know some people roll their eyes at the academic calendar. Well, look, most of these people actually are interested in, being in their classes and getting degrees. We always talk about the very tiny fraction of them that are super highly paid and possibly NFL players. Most of them aren't. Most of them are probably pretty happy getting some free college and maybe a little NIL. And it makes sense to have it during the academic window. So I hope that's what happens. I like that it seems from Vanini's story that that's the momentum. And I don't care that a team that's in the playoff has to deal with the headache. That's part of the deal. Then don't be good.
Yeah, it's not I would probably, in a perfect world, rather just see one transfer portal window in February and just have a window in February. But as you brought up, you can't do that with academic calendar. I mean, you're already into the semester at that point. So it's going to be in January. So it's not perfect. It is, I think, the best scenario possible. I don't like I'm with the coaches who say the spring window is not good. And it's not good because you think you've got your roster heading into spring football. And then all of a sudden spring football rolls through and somebody's not happy with the reps they're getting in spring practice, and they decide to just bolt and get out of there. And that happens, at different points throughout the country. And then there's obviously the extreme of it with the Nico situation that just happened in Tennessee in the spring windows. I think one period of movement, however they get there, is good in college football. I hear what Kirby Smart and Ryan Day and those guys are saying, and what's going to be really interesting is like when they're in the middle of their college football playoff run, and guys are trying to make the decision as to whether or not they're going to stay. Now, I think what you'll still see happen is teams that are in the playoff, we know that they get additional time and they've got an additional window after that. So I think that part of it makes it a little bit easier to absorb if you're one of those teams. But there's too much movement in college football right now. We've talked about this a lot on the show. I don't care about players getting paid. I don't think most college football fans care about players getting paid. Like, I think sometimes the media makes that more of a deal than it actually is. Like, I think most people are okay with players getting paid. The number one issue they've got to solve is player movement. There's too much of it, and it's very difficult. I don't know if it's affected your product yet, but it will at some point. Like, there's way too much player movement, and that's the number one thing they've got to get figured out.
Yeah, and it's just you will still have these situations, even with the teams being able to do it after their season. You will still have situations where a backup on a team playing for a championship is like, well, if I don't go now during the regular window period, well, then I'm going to lose my spot at Texas Tech.
Correct.
And they want me, and I can start next year for them, and I'm getting money, and so I'm leaving. So that'll happen. These teams that are in the playoffs are going to lose depth at times because they got a player. I mean, I don't think you're going to see like a starter leave. That'd be something else. That'd be a new one. Maybe it'll happen at some point. Starting quarterback's like, hey guys, I really want to play for the championship, but like, Texas is offering me $3 million to come next year, so I got to go. I mean, I don't think realistically that's going to happen. We'll see, but you will lose players. You will have disruptions. You will lose some depth. Usually it's just guys that you would have lost anyway, but it's just inconvenient because they have to do their business while you're still playing. But I can live with that. And I'm with you. Look, some people disagree with that. They're like, oh, show me the proof. The stadiums are full. The tailgating is as good as ever. Ratings are incredible. Why are you sure it's hurting the product? I would tend to agree with you, though. I think that the movement needs to be contained because if you have these teams changing so much year to year, I do think that fans latch on to players and like to have some level of continuity. So I don't know that it would destroy it if it would stay like this, because I just think the passion for your alma mater or your team that you grew up with loving is always going to be there. But it's better for the product. And look, it's better. You're saving in a lot of cases with movement. Some of these guys need to be saved from themselves and saved from their inner circle, who is not looking at the big picture of you're in a good place. You're developing. You like it there. You are, making progress toward a degree. This is a place you can always go back to when you're an adult. It's a huge part of this whole thing is being able to go back to a place and calling it home and having this network of alums like Nico. I feel bad for him because Nico was developing and his teammates liked him and all this stuff. And now he's in a worse situation. And sometimes that's why, when you have one window, there's some guys who might have left during the other window and maybe they get talked into, stick it out, work hard, and get yourself higher in the depth chart because you like it here. Other than that,
I don't have a way to prove this, but I know for me, the player movement has already really affected how I view and feel about like the recruiting part of it. Like, think about 15 years ago, National Signing Day, and like what a big deal it was, right? Of like, there were people that just sat around all day and watched National Signing Day. And now, and I can't speak for everybody here, I really couldn't care less. Like, my approach basically at this point with high school recruiting is, you still need a good class, but let me know when they get on the field, right? Like, there's a lot of Tennessee fans really excited about David Sanders, and they're obviously really excited about Faison Brandon coming next year. And my approach is cool. I mean, let me know when they're playing actual football, because until then, there's a billion different things that can happen where they can leave. So like it's not worth a whole lot of energy, in my opinion, getting excited about those guys because of the situation that's currently there until they start playing football.
Yeah, no, I get that for sure. I mean, signing day is definitely because it was actually a great kind of sports thing in the middle, in early February where there was nothing going on anyway. And now it's December, and now it's in the middle of way more stuff going on in December. And like you said, like you could still
meaningless.
Lose some guys. Yeah. I mean, it's not me, but the interesting thing about it is, like, and maybe this will change over time, but we still are seeing the strong correlation between the teams playing for championships and their recruiting rankings of their high school recruiting classes, right? Like that's still like Ohio State, Georgia, like they've been at the top and they're typically have the best teams. So with some exceptions, and again, maybe that'll change. I still think it's really important to have a great class and then know you're going to probably lose more than you would have before. But if you do a good job of retaining the bulk of it and you do a good job of evaluating out of high school, you're still going to be better off long term.
We got the Rob Rant coming up next. Corey Curtis will be with us at 8 o'clock, taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game.
Don't make me angry.
Sometimes you have to tell someone to pound sand.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
This is the Rob Rant. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
Oh, yeah. More polyester pants. Tally ho!
We make fun of gout on this show a lot, but I also feel like our show is a vehicle for gout awareness.
Gout Awareness Day is May 22nd.
Well, every day I look in the mirror, I don't think I'm getting any younger.
Tacos and beer.
Bill Callahan!
You tell me, who is your daddy and what does he do?
And then there was more tacos and beer. Maybe someday you could be like me and get gout.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rob Rant here on Robby and Rexrode. Rexrode powering through today. Rexrode, let's get an update at 7:48 real quickly for how we're feeling, how we're doing today so far on the program.
Yeah, I've been, when I'm turned this way, I've been like icing on and off as much as I tolerated. Like it really hurts for anything to touch the gouted foot. So it's just stupid. I was stupid yesterday. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered. Maybe today would have been bad, but typically when you get a gout attack, you should like elevate it, ice it, and stay off it. And I went to the movie with my kids and it was stupid. So it hurt. Thanks for asking.
Well, I'm just, we're again, as we said to start the show, very proud of you for how you're fighting through today and showing up to work and just powering through, soldiering on, as they say. We'll take more of your well wishes for Rexrode on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. So I took a nice trip to East Tennessee this weekend. Stayed in Gatlinburg. The mountains is very nice. We had a great time out there. But as we're driving up, I noticed a trend and really a correlation with this trend that I think it's worth bringing up here today. So, we're moving along. We're probably somewhere along, right around Cookeville, Crossville, somewhere in that area, approaching the Buc-ee's, which was a wild success with the toddler. Toddler, big fan of Buc-ee's.
Nice.
So there's this car in the left lane that is just, I think I counted at one time because I was just curious for how many cars were passing it. I think 7 consecutive cars passed this car in the left lane from the right side without the person moving, doing anything whatsoever. So I finally get up next to this person and I look over and they're just singing along in the car and they've got the AirPods in the ear. AirPods driving down the road in the ear. And so I thought, I don't know how they do that. There's no way I could drive with headphones in and have any sort of focus whatsoever. But I didn't think much of it. I just keep going. We get a few more miles down the road and it's a different car that almost runs into the people in front of us, switching lanes where they're basically right next to each other and just weren't paying attention. And it was almost a bad wreck. Thankfully, nothing happened and everybody was okay. But then I get up next to this person and I look over and they've got AirPods in. They've got headphones in, just driving down the road, listening to headphones.
Both ears?
Both ears. And I'm like, so is this a thing now? People just drive with headphones in all over the place? Number one, I was like, is this legal? Like, can you do this? So, Joey, I looked it up. Apparently, it is illegal to wear headphones while driving in 35 states. Tennessee doesn't look like they're one of them. So I guess it's legal to do in the state of Tennessee. I was really unaware that people do this. I have no idea how you would like focus with headphones in. Maybe some people can do it. I know that I couldn't do it. So I've never even thought to have that as an option. I get to dinner one night in East Tennessee this week, and there's multiple teenagers sitting at the table with headphones in, listening to music rather than conversing with their family. Headphones becoming a huge problem in the United States of America, and we can do the general conversation at another time. I would urge people, take the headphones out when you're driving the car, because based on what I saw this weekend, there seemed to be a pretty stark correlation between people driving with headphones in and then almost killing everybody around them.
Yeah, that's not okay in a car. What you're talking about, that's weird to me. In a car, I don't get that at all. I would be so uncomfortable, and especially if you have the noise canceling headphones. It's like you're detached from the environment. That's you have to have obviously very, very alert for what you're talking about with dinner and stuff. Yeah, that's unfortunately. So I have a kid, my oldest, who just has this thing where he's off in college, so we don't see him too often anymore, but he'll just walk around with one in.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
He's just like, so he's like talking or whatever, but then it's like, wait, why do you have an AirPod in? Like one? And I guess it's like, if something happens on his phone or whatever, like he hears the thing or he can get in there and quickly be like, okay, and he can hear it. But it's like, to me, it's like, to me, it's like one or the other.
That would drive me nuts.
And also like, yeah, me too. But yeah, the whole like just AirPods in while you're supposed to be at a dinner with people. Oh man. I mean, all of it. It's phone, AirPods, just being totally distracted. It's a problem, man. But the driving part of that's crazy to me.
Multiple people. I saw multiple people driving with AirPods in.
I could see the
headphones
driving with the one AirPod in, so you could do like a hands-free call.
I could see that.
If you go one and you get a phone call, you want to go hands-free, I'm cool with that, with the one. And I'll walk around the house one AirPod in. When I'm listening to the radio, streaming our show on the app or whatever's on, Jared in the afternoon, I'll go back and listen to our stuff. Or even if I have the game on my phone, finals or something tonight, don't want to take up the TV, but I'll have it on the phone and I'll just have the phone on and, maybe not watching, but I'll have the headphone in so I can hear what's going on.
I mean, I just think
that makes sense.
Like driving, I clearly the first person that was in the left lane the whole time, like they were totally unaware that there was just this convoy of people behind them passing. I mean, they were just, I guess they had their music turned up loud in their headphones. They were just having the time of their life. It's like, but like you probably should be able to at least hear what's going on around you in case that there's,
it's the emergency
an ambulance or something behind you. Yeah.
You got to be able to move out of the way now.
You should probably have the ability to be aware of what's going on out there. I mean, that would be why. First off, like I just couldn't do it. I don't know if I could drive in a car with headphones. I listen to, the radio, the car speaker, and you can turn it down at any point and it's not in your ear, all those things. But I just, apparently it's a thing now. Like I saw it all over the place of people driving with headphones in this weekend. I guess I've never noticed it before.
Yeah, that should be, there's something for state lawmakers to address, I would say for sure. It's dangerous. You got to be able to, the ambulance, it probably cuts through noise canceling, but even, some of the other more subtle noises that you could have that could be, something that you need to pay attention to when you're on the road.
Yeah, what if you get, what if your car's breaking down? Like you probably need to be able to hear where the sound is coming from. It's like, what's going on? Oh, wait, I came to a complete stop.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that's very dangerous. That's a good point by Ian on. I actually, that's not a bad idea because when I do that, sometimes I'll like have a game, but like whatever, people are watching something different, and I usually just go without sound. But the one ear, like get sort of listening, but then still able to hear with your other. That's actually I might try that. I guess I was making fun of my son, but the thing is, it's not like he was streaming something. He was just having it in just to be
just in case. You just never know.
I found that kind of weird, but yeah, we need to come up with a, just like we need to come up with, you mentioned earlier, Aaron, we need to come up with golf course cheating etiquette. Maybe we need to come up with an AirPod etiquette, schedule for people.
Maybe so. Might be something we got to work out on this program. I would just encourage people. Hey, if you're going to do this, I mean, at the moment, it appears to be legal in the state of Tennessee. If you're an offender of this, just make sure you keep an eye out for what's going on around you. And if you look back and you're in the left lane and there's 75 cars behind you, the problem is probably you. Just keep that in mind as you're driving down the road. Let's welcome Bicycle Boy into the program on our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Bicycle Boy, good morning.
Hey, good morning, fellas. Just really quickly, I will drive with the left earbud in when my wife and I are on long trips. The reason I do that is because she has no interest in listening to sports talk. So I keep the left one in. I can listen to 102.5, and I keep the right one open so I can listen to her complaining about my driving.
Nice. Nice. That's very good. That's very good. Thanks for the call, Bicycle Boy. I mean, I guess, Joe, I guess the one ear, there's probably not a huge issue with it because at least you can have the other ear to hear what's going on around you. It's the both ear that, but I mean, the first person pretty clearly was having a concert with the headphones in. And it was like, hey, look behind you at some point. There's an entire mile of people behind you waiting on you to stop going 55 miles an hour in the 70-mile-an-hour lane.
Yeah, that's not good. Okay, I'm warming up to the one ear, though. I'm warming up to the one ear a little bit here.
One ear is acceptable is what we've determined here on the program. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on all things Tennessee Titans. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Monday morning. And we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And check in with our friend Corey Curtis from News 2. Brought to you by Tennessee Men's Clinic. Corey, good morning. How are you?
I am delightful, gentlemen. How are you today?
Doing fantastic. Appreciate you taking time to be with us here on the program. So, Corey, I'm going to start with our question of the day here on the program.
Okay.
Whose seat is hotter heading into next season? Is it Brian Callahan with the Titans? Is it Andrew Brunette with the Nashville Predators? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Brunette does have Barry Trotz on his side, but I have to think it's Brunette. I mean, because hockey is a much more volatile coaching front compared to the NFL. You know, number one, although the NFL's gotten, you know, a little more quick triggered than it used to be, but you know, he's putting himself, Trotz is putting himself on a limb coming back with it. And so, you know, if it does not go well the first 8 weeks of the season, I have a hard time seeing him survive that. I do. Because, you know, the expectations were for better. I mean, look, even if they didn't make the playoffs, they didn't have to be as bad as they were. I mean, that was, I think, shocking for all of us to watch. And so, you know, you've seen, you know, Brian Callahan, you know, take drastic measures, you know, this summer, you know, drastically changing things, understand things have to be different. And so he knows what he's got to do. And, you know, we'll see how it plays out. I think he gets a little more grace, you know, with a rookie quarterback, but not a ton. But I think the seat is very hot for Brunette just to start with, you know, no matter what Barry Trotz says, they've got to have results or they've got to go in another direction.
Yeah. And another thing we talked about in relation to Callahan, Corey, was, you know, someone brought up Malarkey, which obviously that was before we sort of knew or thought of Amy as a quick trigger firing owner, but Malarkey wins a playoff game, gets fired. But another part of that was John Robinson wanting Mike Vrabel. John Robinson believing
that was the biggest part of that.
Right. So the GM had someone in mind, wanted someone in particular. So it was like it was almost a foregone conclusion that was going to happen.
Well, Joe,
I guess
did they
my
interview
question
anyone
for
else?
you is, well, they did, because you have to.
Well, but I mean, they interviewed their offensive coordinator and they interviewed their minority candidate. They interviewed one guy for the job.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the question when it comes to Callahan to me is, yeah, that's fine. The question when it comes to Callahan for me is, you know, does Mike Borgonzi have someone? See, I would have a real problem with, like, because, you know, the Kansas, I mean, Andy Reid's tree, it hasn't gone all that well, but there are some guys who, you know, you could look at and say, maybe he thinks this guy's, or it could be someone totally different, just like you know, Robinson and Vrabel, who had a loose connection through the Patriots, but, you know, I mean, not really, they'd never like worked together in terms of both being, you know, like Vrabel was a player, right? So if that's, I guess that to me is got to be a big part of this equation, right? Does Borgonzi have someone in mind? I guess if he does, do you have a problem with that?
Well, I think it's a GM's job to always have the next guys in mind. I mean, that just goes with the job. I mean, if he doesn't have 3 or 4 people that he would really want to hire and look at this job, then that's the next thing he needs to do. Okay. Because you've got to have that list ready to go so that when things happen, you're not all of a sudden in a information gathering mode. So no, I don't have a problem with it at all. Yes, I do expect him to have it because those things are all his job. And I don't think any coach should be offended by it because Brian Callahan's name was in those lists for GMs last year. So, I mean, that's just the process. You know, the other process is winning games and protecting your job. And so that's what they both got to do.
How do you view like the Nick Holtz part of this? Because you know, I thought it was interesting, Corey, last year at the end of the year, you know, Callahan talked about, you know, needing to do a better job this year of basically being the CEO a little bit more and getting to the defensive side, getting the special teams, rather than just being basically cooped up with the offense. And I thought after last year they might consider moving on from Holtz and bringing in maybe somebody with more experience. Obviously, they haven't done that. As you look at this offensive staff, do you think that this offensive staff is at a place where Callahan can do that effectively enough, or is he still just going to have to be basically all over the offense, and that's going to make it really hard for him to do everything else this year?
Well, I mean, other coaches have done it. Maybe not a ton, but other ones have done it, and he's going to have to prove he can do it. Now, last year, what do we have to say? It's tough to judge the coaching staff on personnel that was just not performing at a high enough level. I mean, was that the Jaguars game or was it the Patriots when he's got Chigakonkwo wide open in the end zone and he threw to the back of the end zone and Drew Hyde to Nick Westbrook? I mean, is that a coaching failure?
No,
I don't think so. Does that mean doesn't have room to grow? Absolutely not. I mean, he absolutely has room to grow. I'm sure Nick Holtz does. I think for me, it's hard to judge them based on the performance of some of the players. The thing I would judge was, what I thought all season, they needed to run the ball more because they were better at running it and throwing it. And I thought they could stay out of more trouble in that way. But everybody's got a ton to prove. And look, if he wanted to move on from Nick Holtz, I don't think anybody would bat an eye at it. But I think, for him, with what he's doing, especially with him trying to expand what he does, because he admitted they got too caught up in just implementing the system, and the small stuff got pushed aside. But as he becomes more of that CEO, I'm sure he feels like he needs a guy who understands him and understands the way he wants things done. And I'm sure he thinks that is Nick Holtz at this point. And so I understand, why he comes back with them. They on paper have better personnel this year in several areas. Offensive line, we'll see if it's at quarterback. I think the initial results are pretty good, but they're going to have to do more with it. I mean, they're going to have to do a lot more, and that starts by doing less penalties, less mistakes, and keeping the ball moving forward. Because look, we can have this conversation about Nick Holtz. It doesn't matter, who he brought in. If he replaced him, if they don't win, they're all going to be gone.
Yeah.
Look, I want to ask you a little bit about Cam Ward. Well, first of all, Cam Ward, we call him Cam Ward. Has he asked to be called Cameron? Like, is this something that we need to all figure out together?
I have not heard that.
Like the Titans have done that. The TD had a good story about him and his dad over the weekend and referred to the entire story as Cameron because he was doing first names because they're both Ward, right? The whole story was Cameron. I'm like, so is this, man, I think maybe, well, let's have it. We'll put it to you, Corey. Next availability for Cam Ward, nail it down on Cam or Cameron. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, what is your final takeaway after mini camp? How do you feel about him given, understanding the limitations we have right now, who the heck knows what he's going to be as a player, but what's your prevailing takeaway from talking to him and watching him?
Well, number one, I see why his college coaches call him a culture changer, and he's absolutely what the Titans needed. I mean, he is a no nonsense, let's go play football, let's get better guy. That is what he is all about. He's all about competing every day, including on practice. And if you didn't know that, just go look at minicamp. I mean, what did he do after he threw 2 interceptions in practice? He ran for like 40 minutes after practice as self-imposed punishment. I mean, he has accountability to himself, which a quarterback, absolutely needs. His teammates, will see that. Ultimately, he has to perform on the field when there's somebody else on the other side of the ball. But I think he has, for people who maybe didn't know a lot about him and maybe didn't believe he was worthy of the first pick, I think he's silenced some of those critics that he's worth taking the chance on. Because it's always a chance, no matter how good you think a guy is. So I think I think, just looking at some of the tweets from his teammates, even on the defensive side of the ball, he has impressed early. But for me, because I've been here for, and you might have too, Joe, I don't know what year you got here, for Vince Young getting drafted, for Jake Locker getting drafted, for Marcus Mariota getting drafted, for Will Levis getting drafted, for Malik Willis getting drafted. He's different. He's different from all of them. And that's not me saying he's more talented than all of them. I mean, Vince Young was insanely talented. Marcus was a rock solid guy and a really good quarterback until the injuries, really kind of derailed him. But he is the most headstrong, domineering leader of those guys that they have drafted. And this organization was dying for that. To me, watching it, it's different because you'll understand why I say it's different, but it's similar to when Kyle Vanden Bosch came in. Kyle Vanden Bosch came in and absolutely changed the culture of this football team, 100%. And I think Cam Ward is that kind of guy, because when we were talking to him about those 5 a.m. meetings, I went and asked Chigakonkwo, I said, "Are you at those 5 a.m. meetings?" He's like, "I got no idea what you're talking about." And all I could think to myself was, in a few months, you're about to, because you're either going to get on the game plan or you're going to get out. It's going to be one of the two things.
So are you telling me Cam Ward's going to have like some of those creepy red contacts that Kyle Vanden Bosch used to have?
You know what? I wouldn't count anything past him. Those were kind of weird. But Kyle was
terrifying.
Great guy, great player. I'll never forget, like, first couple days of practice, and he's running up and down the field like a psychopath. And I think it was Zach Pillar, was like, "Hey, hero, settle down," because they all thought he was trying to embarrass them. And that's just who he was. Yeah. And I remember, I don't know who I said it to. I said, he's either going to be off the team or it's going to be his team in a year. And we found out what happened, because you also have to back it up with results.
Right.
And Kyle did. And that's what will be next for Cam, is he has to back this part of it up with results. And when you can combine the two, then you've got something special.
Corey Curtis joins us every Monday morning at 8:00 here on the program. Corey, fantastic stuff as always. Thank you for being with us.
It really was. I'm glad you could acknowledge that. I'm just going to propose next week we all do the show in red contacts. And by the way, before we go, who has the best record in the American League?
Who does have the best record?
Well, it has been the Detroit Tigers, but they just lost 2 or 3 to the Reds.
The two best teams in each league for a while have been the Tigers and the Cubs.
Yeah.
So we could have a Rexrode
Curtis
World Series matchup.
We get to.
What should have happened in '84.
Should have.
It should have happened in '84, as you know, with the Cubs up 2-0. So I'm sorry to bring it up.
It's the deepest scar of my life. Yeah. That and Charles Martin slamming Jim McMahon to the ground. 2 deepest scars of my life.
Oh man, Corey, thank you, sir.
All right, later.
Corey Curtis from News 2, brought to you by Tennessee Men's Clinic. We'll react to what Corey had to say there. Take your thoughts on the Titans. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I got some tickets to give away. A pair of tickets to the Preds Beer Festival at Bridgestone Arena coming up on Saturday, June 28th. You can get out of the summer heat, join the Preds for craft brews, food, games, and entertainment. And this event guaranteed to be the coolest beer festival in town. It runs from 3:30 to 7 o'clock coming up on Saturday, June 28th. Be caller 5, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Caller 5 will win a pair of tickets to the Preds Beer Festival at Bridgestone Arena coming up on Saturday, June the 28th. Appreciate Corey Curtis for being with us in the last segment. Joe, it was interesting to get his thoughts on your question about the front office and having kind of that next coach in mind. And I guess generally I agree with Corey from the standpoint of, like, if you're a GM, you always probably need to have a list ready. Like we talk about that with ADs and college football, of having your list ready. And if you have to make a move, being prepared to do so at some point. I do think that there's a difference between having a list ready and being prepared for something, and then going into a season approaching it as of, yeah, this guy better show me something unbelievable or I'm going to hire my guy anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. Corey was on a roll, so I was going to cut him off. But that's I'm talking about the scenario of, man, I got to have this guy as my coach. I don't, it would take something absurd for the current coach to take me off my plan of getting my guy, as opposed to, I totally agree with Corey on the idea of, yeah, you better be ready. ADs, GMs, same thing. Have your list, have your top 5, your top 3, whatever, and be ready. And I think for the most part they all are, right? Like everybody pays attention to the trends in the league, and every year there's a new hot OC, hot DC who kind of emerges, and it's like, gotta have that guy. The Lions get good in the last couple of years, and all of a sudden everybody's got to have Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Yep. But so that's just different than what I was really asking about, is just the idea of, because John Robinson, I believe that at some point, and who knows, maybe it was, Vrabel was starting to gain momentum as one of those guys who was going to be on the fast track to being a head coach. And again, I think he had just the 1 year as DC, right?
Yes.
But even before he got the DC elevation in Houston, he was one of those. He might not have to do that. He could be like a Rod Marinelli, who's a D-line coach and gets a head coaching gig. And, you've certainly seen that with several other coaches. Then he gets the DC gig. Actually doesn't go well, but they lost like Watt and Clowney and Mercil. Like, they were all banged up. But I think John Robinson, it's possible he was locked in on Vrabel even going into that year after, the sort of arranged marriage with Mularkey went better than anyone could have guessed in 2016.
Well, then the question becomes, if let's say for sake of this discussion that, like, either a Borgonzi or a Brinker does have somebody in mind that's quote unquote their guy. Like, what is that bar that Callahan would have to reach this year? Because I think even if you're Brinker or Borgonzi and you've got a coach in mind that you would love to see coach your football team one day, like, you have to know deep down that the best case scenario for your quarterback, especially if things are going reasonably well this year, is probably not to uproot the coach regardless. I mean, I'm just throwing this name out there, but let's say that for whatever reason, Brinker just loves Mike McCarthy, right? It's like, well, that's cool. That's cool that you like Mike McCarthy and that you think Mike McCarthy could be a good coach for the football team. But I think you have to know, if you're Brinker or Borgonzi, that unless it's bad and it's just clear that you need to move on, it's not a great strategy to just rip the coaching out from underneath your first-year quarterback if you can help it.
Yeah, exactly. The thing was, go back to that move from almost a decade ago. It's hard to remember. It's hard to remember what we thought at the time sometimes. But I did like how Corey mentioned how Marcus was a really good quarterback. Not just very good, really good.
I'm
or not just pretty
y'all.
Good. Before he got hurt. I mean, well, go 2016, man. It's on record.
Probably
but
not.
That 2017 season, after it was over, that was that was still half of the press conference of Vrabel was, what are you going to do to get the most out of this franchise quarterback? He had this fantastic second year. He takes a big step back in his third year, still wins a playoff game. But, what are you going to do? Vrabel wasn't the perfect guy for that. Vrabel's a defensive guy. But that's why Robinson also basically – there's another arranged marriage situation with Vrabel and Matt LaFleur, who also interviewed for the job. He gets the OC job. The idea being that's the guy who's going to take Marcus to new heights. But even though Malarkey had been an OC, I don't think it's not comparable to this situation to me, where you have, again, this head coach who's a play calling head coach who has a tremendous, whether you want to call it track record or just experience with great quarterbacks. That's what he is, that's what he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So that's why, that's where I just get into, I guess, look, it's fair to be like, okay, show me in this 1 year. But to me, it's a terrible thing if you are going into this year and you're already kind of like, yeah, I mean, he has to do some ridiculous stuff or he's out of here.
So I got one
that could end up being bad for Cam Ward.
Got one texter asking, how bad is bad enough to get rid of the coach, regardless of having a first-year quarterback or not? I mean, look, at the end of the day, winning still matters in this. Like, if you're 3-14 again, it's hard for me to believe that Brian Callahan is surviving that, right? Like, if you're 5-12, that's a 2-game improvement on last year. But what does it look like? Are you 5-12 and the quarterback play looks good? Because to me, that's a different thing than being 5-12, and there's still some big questions about Cam Ward, and maybe he wasn't as good as you hoped heading into this year, and maybe your defense won you a couple of games. Like, you have to somewhat explain to me how it looks, and I don't think it's quite as simple as just the record. But, Joe, it would be hard for me to believe that Cam Ward is showing the progress that you hope that he's showing, and the Titans are 3-14 again at the end of the year. It's hard for me to get there.
Yeah, that would mean an awful, awful defense, and maybe then it's like, well, okay, Denard Wilson, there's like you said, how does it look? Are the Titans on a weekly basis not embarrassing, not committing crazy penalties, not having ridiculous special teams mistakes, and just losing close games to teams that are flat, just simply better than them, and not quite making that those plays in the fourth quarter, but you're still seeing a lot of good things? Well, that's a very different 5-12 than I think last year there was way too much just bad stuff that spoke to just not a good operation.
Yeah. 615-737-1025, our phone number. So we'll get back to the question we've thrown out there. Who is on a hotter seat right now, Brian Callahan or Andrew Brunette? It's been basically split down the middle on the text line. We'll take more of your thoughts. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Monday morning. Throwing the question out there, whose seat is hotter, Brian Callahan or Andrew Brunette, as we prepare for the Titans and the Predators to head into the 2025-2026 season? Joe, it's been interesting. The reaction has been basically split down the middle. I would probably say it's been a little bit more in favor of Brunette than Callahan in terms of being on the hot seat, but pretty close to an even split on the text line. We heard Corey Curtis talk about Andrew Brunette being more on the hot seat. You believe Andrew Brunette is more on the hot seat. What do you make of kind of that discussion? How close is it in your mind between Callahan and Brunette, and where things stand for the local professional coaches right now?
Yeah, well, it's a great question by you, because
thank you.
While there are reasons to lean Brunette, which I do, the big counter to that is incredibly patient organization, historically unbelievably patient organization, and historically not very patient organization that has gone into a totally new realm of knee-jerk reacting owner.
Yep.
So even with that, I'm leaning Brunette, but that's fascinating. That's a good counter. Also, then you get into the Preds. Are the Preds at some point going to break from that history with an ownership change and transition? Look, I don't know. As far as I know, Bill Haslam may be as patient as any sports owner. I mean, I'm not going to assume he's the same exact owner as Jimmy Haslam. I think Preds fans would hope not, frankly, based on some of Jimmy Haslam's mistakes. But we don't know, what that means. I would assume that the Preds will settle into a little bit more of a normal cycle of hiring coaches and GMs and moving on when people don't do their jobs. It's a great story that you have this, these two incredibly likable people, and David Poile and Barry Trotz for such a huge chunk of the history of the organization. I'm not sure that moving forward, that's a standard that you can maintain or even want to maintain.
I agree. Like, that part of it's going to be really interesting, particularly early. I said early on the Brunette front, if they don't start well next year, number one, that would be 3 consecutive years. And you could blame different things for it if you want to, but it would be 3 consecutive years at that point that Andrew Brunette's teams have started slow out of the gate. Now, last year they started slow out of the gate and they never, ever recovered. Not even close. They recovered from it the first year and they ended up going on to make the playoffs. If they start out of the gate slow again next year, it's going to get loud around here very quickly. Like, it's not going to take long for the Predators fan base early in the next year, if things don't go well, to be screaming about Andrew Brunette and wanting to see a coaching change. It's going to happen early, and they know that. Like, I think if you're Barry Trotz, you got to know that heading into the year. The real question to me on that front is, how much does that matter? I think you nailed it earlier. How much does Barry Trotz care about that? And is Barry Trotz, is he operating under that same thought process? Like, all right, I'm sticking with you. I've got faith in you. I'm giving you a chance to figure this out, but you better figure it out quickly, because if you don't, then I'm going to be forced to make a move at that point. Is that the way he's approaching it? Or is he just going to be continue to be what I would probably refer to as uncommonly patient in today's sporting world, particularly in that sport, in the NHL, where they change coaches all the time?
Yeah, if they have a really bad start, like you said, the noise will be overwhelming. If Barry Trotz just ignores that and it's business as usual and they just keep going, I'll tip my cap to someone who operates independently of that, because I think sometimes you have people in sports who are too attuned to the noise outside, and maybe that's been the case with the Titans a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But also, players have that expectation too. The whole league does. So I almost feel like if you got in the next year, it goes poorly. It seems obvious. The writing's on the wall, and then you just keep going. Even like Brunette himself might be like, gosh, really? I'm still coaching here? You know what I mean? It's like, At some point, like, it's not that everybody should conform to the same thing, but like that's just the expectation in this league. And again, in this league, in the NHL, there are actually success stories within seasons, within these long seasons where a team gets a jolt. Yeah. Whereas in the NFL, the coach getting fired in season typically just means it's a terrible team. And then like, some grizzled veteran will just man that post until the horrible season ends and you go get a new coach.
Yeah, that part of it is going to be really interesting because they have operated in a way that's not typical. I mean, I said it last year. Most organizations at the end of last year, where the expectations were heading into the year and where the team ended up, they would have moved on. They would have fired their coach. The Predators didn't do that. So we'll see if there's any sort of urgency quickly with the Predators in terms of you better get results quickly or else. And then with the Titans part of it, I think really the Titans part of it comes down to what exactly do Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi, and for that matter, Amy Adams-Strunk, what do they need to see from Brian Callahan this year to justify keeping him around? I mean, that's what I don't know the answer to. Like we can talk about Cam Ward, but is there an identifiable thing with Cam Ward that specifically they're looking for that he's showing promise? Is it as simple as a win total? Is it a combination of the two? Like we had somebody, Weston in Clarksville asked earlier on the text line about, Brinker, and he was around for the hiring of Callahan. So shouldn't he get canned if it doesn't work out? I have no idea how that's going to end up playing out because, it seems like, Joe, that Brinker has done a really good job of kind of selling himself, selling his vision. And he's obviously been promoted to a place of power now where he's in charge of the football operation. I also know, watching Amy Adams-Strunk's recent history, Joe, that can change very quickly. I've talked about it. She loved Mike Vrabel until she didn't love Mike Vrabel anymore. She loved John Robinson until she didn't love John Robinson anymore. So that part of it, I think, can change very quickly. I think a lot of this is going to come down to how much have they actually sold Amy Adams-Strunk on their plan of patience here, and can she be sustained in that patience by living through what could be another rough year?
Yeah, I mean, both those guys did things to reasonably shake her. I get Robinson way more reasonable. The AJ Brown trade was terrible, so that's okay. That's a huge bit of information to go along with like this bad drafting that had been going on. You're like, okay, the Vrabel thing was more of a personal, just not handled well situation to go with losing. But at least it was like it wasn't completely unfounded, right? I mean, there were definitely people, like, she wasn't like out of the blue, maybe out of firing Robinson in season, but not out of the blue that those guys would have been at least talked about for their jobs. It's just that she just said, boom, fired, ran, you're fired too. Who's next? So I don't know. Yeah, I would think that Brinker would be in some trouble if this flames out this year, but I don't know. Maybe he's insulated himself. I guess we may or may not find out. But as far as the Callahan, judging, yes, it's Cam Ward first to me. Wins and losses matter, yes, but again, it's like what the product can be improved. Cam Ward can look promising. You can still win like 5 games.
I agree.
Now, I guess if that's the situation, then maybe it's still not enough. But it is so much like how it looks. Do they look more like a competent franchise this year? You can do that and still lose. I mean, look, they should still lose 12 games based on paper. So I look at what they have and look at the teams they're playing. Most teams they're playing have better players than them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, really, the schedule softens up at the end of the year. So maybe some opportunities later in the year to rack up some wins there. But what's it going to look like in kind of the meantime as they build to that point? That's going to be, I think, the most fascinating part of the season for the Titans. Of what can you navigate your way to the end of the schedule where there's a whole lot of, Jags and Browns and Saints and teams like that who on paper you should have a chance to win against those teams. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts to get to on the Callahan Brunette front. Plus, Game 5 of the NBA Finals is tonight. The Cup final The Panthers 1 game away from winning the Stanley Cup for the second consecutive year in a row. We'll get into all of that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe, you got a couple Titans thoughts you want to get to, so the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, yeah, real quick. Also, one other non-Titans. I must say, because of your rant today, we found out that there's like a ton of people who go about their daily business with one AirPod and listening to our show.
Yep.
So shout out to all of you. Thank you. I had no idea. I have a new respect for the one AirPod.
I agree.
And also with Ian's experience at home, I might have to start trying it. Another Titans. We talked
Your
about
wife
it
might
quickly,
yell
but
at you some, though. Your wife might yell at you that you're not paying enough attention to you and your family. So just a disclaimer there.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm used to it. It's the norm. Michael and Madison says, y'all got to talk about Jared's Cam Ward take. When I heard him talk about Cam Ward confidence thing in his interception interview, I've never been closer to just turning the radio off. Man, it was insane. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get more of that at some point this week. I mean, I tried to get Jared to explain himself Friday. Jake Lyman and I could not understand what he was saying. So hopefully we get some clarification on that. But I also wanted to make sure we got in, guys, that the Titans put out their Father's Day post yesterday. Did you see this?
I did not see this. I have since read about it on the show this morning, but no, I did not see this yesterday.
Yeah, it was like, yo, happy Father's Day. But then it was like, I guess the copy and pasted message from Mother's Day. So it was like, hey, to all you moms out there.
It's a tough one.
And so yeah, it's a tough one. That's a tough one. Tough one on the Titans. I mean, it's spend like 90 seconds writing a new message about Father's Day.
Yeah.
I don't think that's asking too much.
No, like it's fine.
Happy Father's Day. Hope your turkeys are great today and you have some great stuffing. Happy Father's Day. Make sure that trick or treating gets done early enough. I mean, can we write the independent messages for each holiday? Come on, Titans.
Really good stuff there. Really good stuff. Joe, game 5 tonight in the NBA Finals. The series evened up at 2. Goes back to OKC tonight, where I believe Oklahoma City is a 9.5-point favorite in the matchup tonight.
Last I saw, yes.
Yep, 9.5 is the number. So game 5 tonight in Oklahoma City. Indiana led for almost all of the game in game 4, and then Oklahoma City takes the late lead. They end up winning by 7 in that game. Great fourth quarter from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Alex Caruso playing well in game 4 through the first 3 quarters, kind of keeping the Thunder in it. But, Joe, it kind of felt like one that Indiana let get away from them, and that may come back to bite them in this series.
Yeah, they blew it, man. They blew it. They had a couple turnovers and just some lapses late. And give OKC credit. And there were a couple calls that you watch them in slow-mo. It's like, oh, man, especially like the Halliburton turnover. He got shoved. I think it was Lou Dort shoved him. It was like, dude, how did you not see that? I do appreciate Rick Carlisle for like just calling out like Pacers, Twitter, the conspiracy, Tim Donaghy. Like, this is ridiculous, guys. I mean, they miss calls. Like the story of this series is not officiating, but that's typically, inevitably, you get into these series and like one side or the other, or both sides, are going to be so certain that they're being screwed over by the refs and that it's part of a conspiracy. It just has to be part of a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Good for you, Rick Carlisle.
Yeah, I mean, he's not been afraid to talk about that throughout the playoffs to this point. Rick Carlisle throwing it out there the other day. I look at the Thunder, and again, when I start talking about this, I always get scared that Indiana is going to do what they've done all postseason long, and that is just shut me up basically immediately. But I felt like if they could just get game 4 and get it back to Oklahoma City, now you're talking about the idea of potentially extending this thing out to 7 games, and 2 of those games would be in OKC. I know Indiana's already gotten them once down there, but I think they're just kind of a different beast to deal with at home. They've been that way all year. And, I mean, there's a reason. I don't want to get into the Vegas knows stuff, but there's a reason the line's as big as it is. Like, they're a pretty darn good team at home to deal with. And it felt like Indiana, like if they could have won that game the other night, I think they were going to win the series. And then they let it get away from them. And I just think a lot of things now favor Oklahoma City in this series the deeper it goes, Joe. I think they're deeper. I think they've got, obviously the home court advantage is going to play a big part of it. But I think the deeper this thing goes, the more it favors OKC.
Yeah, look, I've been underestimating Indiana the entire postseason. I thought Milwaukee would beat them. So
yeah,
I can do it again. I'm hesitant. I've gained tons of respect for them. They're a great team. It's been an amazing story. I think they're toast. Yeah, like because I think their path to winning this thing was you have to steal one. They stole it. And then you absolutely have to win those 3 home games. You're not stealing 2. You're not winning 2 in that building. And I fear that they won't even come close. So I'm here for them proving me wrong. But you're right about Vegas. I mean, look, how many times do you see a team up 2-1 in the NBA Finals and the next game is on their home floor and they're 6-point dogs?
Right.
Very rarely. And it's amazing that they ended up covering that, by the way.
Yeah, I was very glad that they did, according to our competition out there. Cup final, Florida on the verge again, winning back-to-back Stanley Cups here. So they get the win in Game 5 in Edmonton. Brad Marchand has been unbelievable in this series. He scored a couple just nasty goals the other night, and they're going back to Florida tomorrow. We'll get a little bit more into this on tomorrow's show, but an opportunity to wrap up the Stanley Cup for the second consecutive year. And Joe, I mean, we've talked about this, but it's reached the point with McDavid and Draisaitl that anything less than a championship is going to be viewed as a failure at this point. And here they are on the doorstep, and we'll see if they can win a game and get it back to Edmonton for Game 7. To which I said, I mean, if you can do it, if I would have told McDavid, Draisaitl, everybody involved with the Oilers that your season is going to come down to Game 7 at home against the Florida Panthers for a chance to win a Stanley Cup, would you take it? I think they all would have said yes. It's just a matter to me of, are they going to be able to withstand what is going to be a raucous environment and a Florida team that, as this series has gone on, I think has figured out the way they need to play against Edmonton. Are they going to be able to sustain that in Game 6?
Yeah, it was eye-opening to see how much their butts were kicked in that last game when both teams should have been dragging after the travel and everything. One of them looked like it was, one of them wasn't. But look, they can win. They can win. They can absolutely win both these games. They need to score the first goal at some point. I think that'd be good. Do you make a change in goal? Do you go back to Skinner if you're Edmonton?
Yes. I think you do.
You think that's the clear decision here?
I think it is. Happen? I think they will. And look, I don't have a ton of confidence in Skinner, but Pickard can give you a good performance in relief every now and then. I don't think Pickard needs to be your starter heading into this. And frankly, like this is a big moment for Skinner too, right? Like you need to figure out, can Skinner perform for you in these big high pressure moments? Because if not, then maybe that's something else you need to look at this offseason if you're Edmonton. Like you got to find a way to get that part of it figured out. So I'd go back with Skinner in Game 6. I mean, the real thing of it, like I know that if you look at the point total, you're looking at McDavid and he's still got like 8 points or whatever it is in this series, and he's playing well. I think for large chunks of the game, they've done a nice job of limiting his effectiveness. Like you can never totally stop him, obviously. But I think for pretty sizable portions of some of these games, they've done a really good job of slowing him down.
Yeah, no question about it. And Edmonton also needs to stay out of the box. I mean, some of their penalties have been disastrous. As someone pointed out earlier, Ekholm had a real rough last game with a couple. One Marchand just beating him, but then the turnover was critical. Arvidsson got back in the lineup last game. Maybe it's time for those two to band together and bring a little 2017 magic to the whole thing.
We'll see how it all goes. We'll have more on that on tomorrow's program. Chase and Big Joe up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.